Chapter. I'm curious to know how many chapters are in this story that I'm doing, and we're now in chapter 8.
Voiceover. Chapter 8. Enter the Beast. Chapter 8. Enter the Beast. Image.
Chapter 8. Enter the Beast.
There is little time to process all that has happened since your encounter with the Nightmare King. Events are piling on each other, and Crinkle Corp's invitation has had an electrifying effect on Mrs. Claus. She arranges for your visit in haste. There is little time to process all that has happened since your encounter with the Nightmare King. Events are piling on each other, and Crinkle Corp's invitation has had an electrifying effect on Mrs. Claus. She arranges for your visit in haste. It's gray and cold as you and Mrs. Claus pull up to Crinkle Corp headquarters in New York City in a cab. Glowing animated billboards display ads for Crinkle Corp's Lance Warden and Madam Time action figures. Page 2 of This deep into the human world, you've had to adopt a more human disguise. Your tall, regal form would be excellent for bargaining purposes, but the ethereal aura might not go over well with the mortal guards. The corporation seems aware of your true nature, of course, but you doubt that knowledge extends to the lower ranks. Mrs. Claus has gone for a muted look in a burgundy peacoat, but her piercing eyes and frost-white hair demand attention. Her normal form is fairly human, so she hasn't had to change much. What disguise have you chosen? Page 4 of 4. I'm dressed as a hairy, knuckle-cracking thug in a demi fedora and matching overcoat. I prefer a subtle approach. I'm disguised as Mrs. Claus's child with a neat hat and tidy braids. I match Mrs. Claus's tough as steel style as closely as possible. We could be twins. I may have to be disguised, but I can still stand out. I am a mysterious figure with a domino mask and a feathered headdress. I prefer a subtle approach. I'm disguised as Mrs. Claus's child with a neat. I prefer a subtle approach. Next button. Your ankle bears the star birthmark that is your characteristic trait. This form will help you to show politeness and restraint. The two of you step out of the cab. Mrs. Claus nods towards the driver, whom you pay with a small wad of dollar bills. She pulls off. The neon light from the billboards plays over the car as it drives away. You look at Mrs. Claus, who seems lost in thought. The confrontation with the Kingdom of Dreams wore out both of you. And now this. Sometimes you wish you could take a vacation. At least with fractured quartz having gone to ground somewhere, you feel more at ease, although Caddy has been especially morose recently. Page 2 of You look at Mrs. Claus, who seems lost in thought. The confrontation with the Kingdom of Dreams wore out both of you. And now this. Sometimes you wish you could take a vacation. At least with fractured quartz having gone to ground somewhere, you feel more at ease, although Caddy has been especially morose recently. You shake your head and look around. Crinkle Corp headquarters rises in front of you, dozens of stories tall. The weathered stone is old and full of memories. It almost seems resentful of the gaudy electronics strung across the front of it. The entrance archway is grandiose, stonework and stained glass rising 20 feet or more in the air, while the doors themselves are modern steel and plexiglass. Page 3. You'll be going in first, as Mrs. Claus's bodyguard and confidant. It's time to work on your strategy. A first impression sets the tone for the entire negotiation. I walk confidently to the doors and push them open without waiting for security. I want to start things off amicably. I walk to the doors and knock politely. They need to show respect for Mrs. Claus. They can come to us. We wait stoically. Page 4. It's cold, and I just want to go inside. I shout hello and hope someone hears us. They need to show respect for Mrs. Claus. They can come to us. We wait. I want to start things off amicably. They need to show respect. Next, you fold your arms, set yourself next to Mrs. Claus, and stare at the doors. After what feels like several minutes, there is a click, and the door opens. Remote control, it looks like. Together, you and Mrs. Claus walk inside. The lobby is brightly lit. with a sweeping antique staircase dominating the open space. Rows of stainless steel doors, painted in brown and gold, flanked the staircase to either side. 4 guards in suits stand in a line in front of the staircase, each wearing dark glasses and a headset. One of the guards steps forward. Page 2 of 2. The lobby is brightly lit, with a 4 guards in suits stand in a line in front of the staircase, each wearing dark glasses and a headset. One of the guards steps forward. Mr. Leonore will be a few minutes. He invites you to the reception hall to wait. Mrs. Claus graciously inclines her head, and the guards escort you up the stairs. Next, Button, the oldest guard, a man with a salt and pepper beard, looks down at you as you skip up the stairs. You smile sweetly at him, then stick out your tongue. The guard looks away. You are brought to a large room, filled with mostly empty tables and chairs covered in dust covers. One table has been prepared with an exquisite banquet. Caviar, lobster tail, warm pastries, baklava, and other delicacies are provided for your pleasure. You are brought to a large room. Mrs. Claus, still seemingly lost in some distant thought, leans over you to grab a honey cake. She whispers to you as her mouth grazes your ear, "I need to investigate something for a moment. Distract them." Page 2 of 3. She takes a bite out of the cake and walks away. You keep a straight face but start devising your plan. You'll need to play off your strengths. I show the guards just how much food this body can fit. This ought to be fun. There's a piano in the corner. I play a complex and elegant concerto, something that will dazzle them. I use my natural open-mindedness and curiosity to my benefit. I ply the guards with questions until I wear them down. Page 3 of 3. I use my natural I impress the guards with my physical fitness. I do one-handed push-ups, clapping between each one. I use my natural open-mindedness and curiosity to my benefit. I ply the guards with questions until I wear them down. There's a piano in the corner. There's a piano in the Next, you spring up and glide over to the piano, sitting down and brushing your fingers over the keys. Then your hands spring into motion, playing the opening of Beethoven's Piano Concerto No. 5. The bald guard turns immediately and trots over. The others stand silently, but slowly begin to gather as the concerto progresses. By the time you're done, the bald guard has tears running out from under his sunglasses, and the ginger guard applauds politely. Page 2 of 2. By the time you're done, the bald guard has tears running out from under his sunglasses, and the ginger guard applauds politely. You see Mrs. Claus examining the walls carefully while the guards are otherwise occupied. She runs her fingers over some of the decorative scroll work. When you finish and the guards wander away, she repeats her earlier brush by and whispers, "Bleeder work in the walls. Capable of draining magic. Be on the alert." Next, the largest set of doors at the end of the room open and a tall, awkward man in an olive-colored suit peeks in. The guards all snap to attention. The man waves apologetically at the guards, and strides to Mrs. Claus. He grasps her by the hand. Phil Archer. I'm the vice president of Crinkle Court." Mrs. Claus nods politely without breaking eye contact. Diana Claus. Phil grins, but it doesn't extend to his still cautious eyes. He says, "I'd just like to extend my welcome to you and your, kid here on behalf of Crinkle Court." Page 2 of 4. Phil grins. He clears his throat, and says, "Mr. Leonore is ready for you. Please follow me." He leads you toward the double doors, and the three of you enter a long corridor, with the guards following behind. You immediately feel a dull, gray presence. A magic inhibitor? That must be what Mrs. Claus was talking about earlier. She said bleeder work, so it must be some sort of draining technology. You've seen this before, and you have some idea how to handle it. I have a thaumaturgical signal Page 4 of 4. I have a thaumaturgical signal scrambler in my pocket. I activate it and hope for the best. Christmas magic is different from other kinds and might be harder to inhibit. I establish a conduit of magical hope and wonder leading past the range of the inhibitor, like a high-voltage magical wire. Radio button, unchecked. 2. The system might be targeting visible magic. I subdue our auras, hiding our magic with trickery where it can't find it. Christmas magic is different from Christmas magic. Next, you focus on a Christmas memory of watching a family of 7 children open gifts that you had hand-chosen for them. The parents' memories had been altered, as usual, so their joy was just as real as the children's. Concentrating, you extrude the memory, spooling it out like thread in your palm, and you ball it up. Then you make a discreet casting motion, throwing the ball of thread behind you. The guards shouldn't notice concentrated hope rolling by. Unless they're fey, which is doubtful, given their scent. Page 2 of the ball of magical thread rolls down the hallway and out the door, connecting you to the room beyond the area of influence. The magic flows through the cord and hums in your veins. There is a final burst from the inhibitor, but something pops in the walls. It will cost them quite a bit to replace that. You smile. But you're still cautious. The office will likely have its own supply of anti-magic devices. Phil stops briefly before an imposing door carved with a lion's head. He ushers you into a penthouse office with wraparound windows letting in the twilight. Bookshelves line the interior wall. Mr. Leandri stands behind a broad desk, facing away from you. Page 3 of In the Service of Mrs. Phil and the guards leave. The doors close behind you with a solid thunk. You can't suppress a shiver. Mrs. Claus squeezes your hand. She leans in and whispers, "Be firm. It will be all right." Mr. Leandri turns and faces you. His appearance is astonishing. You don't know what to focus on first. What's your first impression? The well-oiled and neatly trimmed tawny beard spilling over his chest. It's impressive. The well-oiled and neatly trimmed tawny beard spilling over his chest. It's impressive. Page 4. The dark eyes hidden under lowering brows. They seem to take in everything at once. The expertly tailored suit and well-cobbled shoes. They look handmade by an expert. The ostentatious display is off-putting. The expert grace that he carries himself with. It's surprising, given his musculature. And it's the expert grace that... Next, please, be seated, says Mr. Leandri. He gestures, indicating a pair of armchairs near an end table with 2 cups of tea. Mrs. Claus sits down. She pulls off her gloves and folds them before grabbing a cup. It's clear she intends you to follow her lead and sit calmly. The tension is getting to you, though. The guards, the inhibitor. Mr. Leandri is trying to intimidate you. How do you react? I sit down, imitating Mrs. Claus. Page 2 of 2. I sit down, but I subtly keep my weight on my toes, ready to spring into action. I remain standing, partly between Mr. Leandri and Mrs. Claus, ready to defend her in case of danger. I remain standing, refusing to participate in this farce. I sit down, imitating Miss. Next, you settle yourself down by plopping into the provided chair. Then you grab the tea and sip. Mrs. Claus smiles briefly, and Mr. Leandri seems pleased at your acquiescence. Mr. Leandri breaks the silence. Mrs. Claus, he says, leaning his bulk forward, let me be brief. Crinkle Corp can no longer tolerate the influence of magical beings in the mortal world. And yes, we know exactly who you are. But, before we take action, I am giving you one chance. I'm offering to buy you out. Page 2 of You may find us beyond your means, says Mrs. Claus. Our organization is vast and has been under independent management for millennia. No, I don't think you're quite as strong as you say, Mrs. Claus. I'm told you've lost a considerable investment in the last few months. Multiple investments. A heart, and, he says as he turns to you, a lift. You wince. Mrs. Claus is impassive, but her eyes are gleaming. She always did love the deadly dance of corporate negotiation. Page 4. She looks at you. What do you think, Rosewood? Should we sell ourselves to Crinkle Corp? You laugh contemptuously. Ridiculous. You speak to him directly. Mr. Leonore, I'll be frank. I think you're biting off more than you can chew. We don't know what they have to offer yet. We should give him a chance to explain himself. I'm sure we can figure this out together. But the idea does seem pretty ridiculous. We don't know what they have to offer yet. We should give him a chance to explain himself. We don't know what they have to offer yet. We should give next button. Mrs. Claus nods, taking a sip of her tea. Mr. Leonore smiles. He has especially large canines. Mr. Leonore says, cards on the table. I'm prepared to facilitate the return of your two artifacts. Offer you positions on the board, a 30% interest in the conglomerate. Independence in your own sphere. In return for, asks Mrs. Claus. In return, we ask that you remain in that sphere. We ask that the pathways between worlds be closed to all traffic except official Crinkle Corp business. We ask that the Fey world remove itself from the interests of our world. Page 2 of 4. In return, we ask that you remain in that sphere. And what of Christmas? Asks Mrs. Claus. The practice of Christmas would be abolished, says Mr. Leonore. No Christmas, you think? Your overarching goal is to restore Mrs. Claus to her rightful place. But would you still feel comfortable if that place didn't involve Christmas? If Mrs. Claus led you into a new direction, a corporate partnership? This is Mrs. Claus's decision, of course. But how would you feel about Christmas being gone? Page 4 of 4. Good riddance. Quasi-religious holidays are no good for the mortals. But a corporate partnership could bring me influence in the human world. I would honestly be happy to see Christmas go. But I would rather work in the nine hells than become a business executive. A partnership between the realms is an exciting idea. But I would hate to lose Christmas. It means so much to me. Any choice that involves ending Christmas is off the table. I'm a Yuletide elf to the core. Page 4 of 4. Any choice that involves ending Christmas is off the table. I'm a Yuletide elf to the core. A partnership between the realms is an exciting idea. But I would hate to lose Christmas. It means so much to me. Any choice that involves ending Christmas is off the any choice that involves next button. Next button. While you are pondering your own feelings, Mrs. Claus rises to her feet. Mr. Leonore, she says. I'm afraid that I must reject your offer. You are naive. The dealings of the Fey realm are beyond your ken if you believe that I could oppose the will of the Great Seven. I pity you for the oncoming storm that you have brought upon yourself by challenging them. She stands, opens the door, and motions for you to follow. I think not, Mrs. Claus. He extends his hand, and a feeling of intense anger floods the room. He flicks his wrist, and the door slams shut. Page 2 of While you are pondering your own feeling, I think not, Mrs. Claus does not seem surprised. In one fluid motion, she brings an obsidian dagger from inside her sleeve and slings it across the room. It hits Leonore's suit jacket and bounces off. Next, Mr. Leonore grins, and his face softens and morphs. He shifts, growing even larger, his beard and hair lengthening. His suit shifts into a heavy lion's skin wrapped around him. He can't be a bleeder. He must be a Fey. Mrs. Claus says, Hercules. I'd long suspected you were at the head of Crinkle Corp. I had to piece the clues together by myself. By the time I entered this building, I knew it. And yet you stayed, dear sister. Half-sister, Hercules. You don't think I knew what I was doing? I didn't get where I am by leaving loose ends, Hercules. I'm here to make. Page 2 of 4. Half-sister, Hercules. An offer. Shut down Crinkle Corp. And return to the Fey world where you belong. He shakes his head. No. He then slams his hand down on a button on the table. From every angle of the room, you feel a terrible pull on your magic. Dampeners, like the ones in the hallway, but far more powerful. You can feel the clockworks in your pocket grinding to a halt, the disguise you wear being stripped away, and your emotions being dampened. Mr. Leonore shrinks a bit and loses some of his luster, but he still towers over the two of you. Mrs. Claus looks frailer, older and worn, but her eyes are still hard and cold as ice. Page 3 of 4. He grabs a heavy cane from behind his chair and stalks forward around his desk. You need to stop him, but you don't have access to your magic. All you have left is your years of knowledge. I can see a structural instability in one of the bookshelves. I send the whole thing toppling towards him. I've heard hundreds of rumors about Hercules over the years. I know his weaknesses, and I take advantage. Page 4 of 4. I may not have magic, but I still have a trick or two up my sleeve. I distract him with sleight of hand and let Mrs. Claus get the jump on him. I've heard hundreds of rumors about Hercules over the years. I know his weaknesses, and I take advantage. I may not have magic, but I still have a trick or two up my sleeve. I distract him with sleight of hand and let Mrs. Claus get the jump on him. I've heard hundreds of rumors about Hercules. I can see a structural instability in one. Next, beyond the mythology humans learn about, you've heard scraps of gossip about Hercules from creatures who actually fought against him. You never met him personally, though, given the spat Mrs. Claus and he had over the hind. You think about what you learned and spring into action. Beyond the mythology humans learn about, you've heard scraps of gossip about Hercules from creatures who actually fought against him. You grab the corner of the rug he's running over and tug it with all your might. He flips high into the air. You shout, huh? Not so strong when you aren't touching the earth, are you? Page 2. He executes a perfect backflip and lands on the ground with a thud. Charging at you. It seems you may have misremembered that particular weakness. Mrs. Claus jumps on his back to stop him, but he throws her to the ground. The two of you square off, facing Hercules. Shouts echo down the hallway outside. You can make out Phil's voice, and the guards. Hercules grins, and says, I've trained them for this. You aren't leaving this room until I'm finished with you. Mrs. Claus says, I thought you might bring reinforcements. That's why I've brought my own. There's someone you're probably dying to see. Page 3 of 3. The two of you square off. Face shouts echo down the hallway outside. Hercules grins, and says, Mrs. Claus says, I thought you might bring reinforcements. That's why I've brought my own. There's someone you're probably dying to see. Next, button. She whistles sharply, and you hear sleigh bells in the distance. Hercules' face reddens. He says, that feels like Dad. Outside the windows, piercing through the clouds, come 4 of the reindeer with Donner at their head. He tosses his head, shaking the bells, and charges at the window. Your heart fills with hope. Donner is a close friend of yours, and you trust him here. As they get close, though, they drop drastically. Pulling away, they circle again for another try. Mrs. Claus says, it's the inhibitors. Try to weaken them as much as you can. Help the reindeer get through. Page 2 of 3. Hercules is absorbed by the scene outside the window. His hand is on the glass, and he's staring at his transformed father as all the reindeer climb back upwards. You'll need to find a way to stop the inhibitors, without magic, of course. They might be electrically powered if they dampen magical sources. I try to create a short in the circuitry of the room. The devices seem to have a short lag before taking effect. I can try to scramble the circuits by attempting to shift into dozens of forms in succession. Page 3 of 3. Hercules would have trouble making this equipment on his own. I think I might have seen something like this before. They might be electrically powered if they Hercules would have trouble making this. Next, you think back. The Druids had a method of restraining the Fae, but it was based on consent and contract, not dampening. The Titans. No, they were bound with their powers intact. Think. Maybe it has something to do with the technology the Goblin Vaults use. In which case it ought to be weakened by silver. You fish in your pocket for the silver pen you were gifted on your 100th anniversary work party. Got it. You take the pen and chuck it at the wind. You fish in your pocket for the silver pen you were gifted on your 100th anniversary work party. Got it. You take the pen and chuck it at the window, hoping it will help Donner. Page 2 of 3. It bounces off and falls to the floor. Nothing else happens besides you throwing a pen at a window in the middle of a fight. It looks like your inside information didn't come in useful this time after all. Seeing your struggle, Mrs. Claus decides to take matters into her own hands. She lowers down and sprints at the wall, leaping and striking it dead center with her heel boot. It cracks, and Donner and the other reindeer plummet from an angle, smashing through the glass and tromping into the room. Donner immediately charges into a wall with his antlers, tearing it up and revealing machinery behind the wood paneling. He kicks it until it stops sparking, then surveys the room. He sees Mrs. Claus kneeling on the floor and holding a bleeding leg. He looks at you and glares. Page 3 of Seeing your struggle, Mrs. Claus decides to take matters into her own hands. She lowers down and sprints at the wall, leaping and striking it dead center with her heel boot. It cracks, and Donner and the other reindeer plummet from an angle, smashing. Next, Mrs. Claus points at the door, and the other reindeer rush to hold it against the oncoming guards. Donner then looks at Hercules. With the magic returning in the room, Hercules reverts to his human disguise, as do you. Mrs. Claus looks taller again, stronger, more present. But Donner stays the same. Hercules notices this and is perturbed. What did you do to him, Diana? He asks. Hercules notices this and is perturbed. What did you do to him, Diana? He asks. It wasn't me. It was blood magic, by the others in the war, transformation into an animal, irreversible, she says. Hercules starts breathing faster. Donner reaches down and pulls a shard of glass out of his right foreleg with his teeth. There's blood on it. Mrs. Claus gestures and the blood begins to glow. Page 2 of 4. Hercules looks back and forth at everyone desperately. You all left me to rot in the mortal world, because I was half human. What did you expect I would do? Worship you? I hated you, but I hated you with reason. You had no right to punish me for what you caused. He turns to you, finally, imploring. You see what they're doing, don't you? The old guard, caring about nothing but themselves and preserving their rights. Merging the human world and the Fae and leaving those of us caught in the middle to die. My own father abandoning me and all his other half-breeds. You seem different. Don't let them do this. Page 3 of 4. He turns to you. Finally, everyone is looking at you now. Even the sounds from outside the room have died down. What do you say? Take him back to the Fae world to stand trial. He's used magic. He's one of us now, and should be punished accordingly. But don't transform him. Page 4 of Take him back to the Fae world to stand trial. He's used magic. He's one of us now, and should be punished accordingly. But don't take your revenge on him. Transform him. He's just a thug and a criminal. If what he says is true, you have both done wrong. Let him go. Give him one last chance. Take him back to the Fae world to stand trial. He's used magic. Next, Mrs. Claus glares at Hercules, but says, very well. I have no doubt that a tribunal would feel the same as I do. But I can afford to wait. Hercules looks at you and says, thanks, I suppose. though I'm not sure this will be any better. Mrs. Claus says, "You will need to be bound." She hands him a crystal orb and says, "Look deeply into the orb." Hercules scoffs. "How will that bind me? What's inside that?" Hercules scoffs. "How will that bind me? What's inside that?" While he peers at the orb, page 2 of Mrs. Claus says, "You will need to be bound." While he peers at the orb, Mrs. Claus clasps her hands and chops him viciously in the back of the neck. He passes out, and she drags him over Donner's back. She notices you watching, and shrugs. "Safer this way." She produces silk ropes and ties him down securely, then kneels and whispers in Donner's ear. Next, you watch as Donner and the reindeer fly off until they are no more than a twinkle in the sky. Mrs. Claus, the door is pushed open. You watch as Donner and the reindeer fly off until they are no more than a twinkle in the sky. Mrs. Claus sinks into a chair. The door is pushed open quietly, and Phil walks in. He looks distraught, his eyes are red, and his sleek hair is straight. "I've been watching on the security cameras," he says, indicating a recess in the corner of the ceiling. "Mr." He chokes a bit. "Mr. Leandri gave me very specific instructions about his meeting. I was aware of his nature, but I didn't expect him to be taken away. And certainly not with such force, ma'am," he says, looking at Mrs. Claus. "Anyway, I've been asked to negotiate the relationship between Crinkle Corp and you folks at Claus Castle." Page 2 of 4. He chokes a bit. "Mr. Leandri gave me Mrs. Claus stands warily, and says, "As you wish. I am feeling unwell, and will not be able to negotiate at this time. My associate, Rosewood Unicorn, will be able to conduct my affairs in my stead." Phil looks at you. With magic back, you've returned to your little child disguise, although you're sure he saw your fey form in the tapes. How do you respond to this assignment? Page 4 of I'd be more than happy to represent the Fey world during these negotiations, Mr. Archer. "Let's do this, Phil. But be aware that I'm never letting you guys get a foothold in the Fey realm again." "I'll do it, milady, but this is really something you should have done yourself." "It seems rather pointless, doesn't it? But I suppose I have to. That doesn't mean I have to like it, though." "I'll do it, milady, but this is really something you should have done yourself. I'd be more than happy to represent the Fey world during these negotiations, Mr. Archer. Radio. "I'll do it, milady, but this is real. I'll do it, milady, but this is really something you should have done yourself." Next, Mrs. Claus regards you coldly, then turns and walks out of the broken glass window, forming a clear stairway of ice rising up into the air. She is gone in moments. Phil looks at you, nervous, but impressed. The two of you sit next to each other in a couple of the armchairs that escaped the destruction. Closer to Phil, now, you can see the emotional toll he's suffered. His face looks pale and clammy, and he seems as if he might throw up at any minute. But he composes himself and addresses you. Page 2 of, "Okay, buddy, let's get this done with. Herc, Mr. Leandri and I have talked about this a lot. We both agree our primary goal is to retain coverage of the toy market and to diffuse sales away from the holiday season as much as possible, to create a more uniform market and income stream." He coughs. "Our secondary goal is to, as completely as possible, control all access between the two realms, and to prevent unauthorized travel between the two. While the connections between the worlds have been relatively stable, there are far too many for human comfort." Page 3. He pulls out a mostly empty water bottle and drinks the last few drops, then asks, "What about you and your group? What are you hoping to gain from this negotiation?" "To be honest, Phil, I've been considering leading a change in the management at Claus Castle, and I could use a partner. Our main goal is the continued safety of Mrs. Claus, Claus Castle, and Christmas." "Well, Phil, the problem is that our goals are opposed. You'd like to separate the worlds. I'd like to bring them together, change the order, shake things up. Page 4 of, frankly, Phil, I'm just looking for stability. Put something in place that will keep us in lasting peace, and then move on. Our main goal is the continued safety of our main goal is the next. Tonight's events must have been extremely trying for Mrs. Claus. The best you can do is to set things right by her. That is your main goal, after all. Phil smiles, and some of the weariness leaves his face. Loyalty to your boss. I can appreciate that. He looks out at the glass, thinking, I could be willing to propose a withdrawal from our interactions with the other realm. But you need to show me you can be trusted, first. Page 2 of, you've got to convince him to follow your plan. In all the mess, it's hard for you to remember if you've been playing the tough elf or the kind-hearted elf. But this is the time for your strategy to shine. Might as well be fully aggressive. You can work with me or die. You saw what we're capable of tonight. Radio button checked. What? It can't hurt to play nice. Frankly, Phil, your company has extensive resources. We can't afford not to negotiate. I can play on our common goals. Phil, we need each other. We're not the only players in our respective fields. Peace is wiser. Page 3 of 3. He needs to know where he stands. Mr. Archer, you're not exactly in a position to negotiate. I'll only make this offer once. Page 2 of 3. He looks out at the glass, thinking, I could be willing to propose a withdrawal from our interactions with the other realm. But you need to show me you can be trusted, first. You've got to convince him to follow your plan. In all the mess, it's hard for you to remember if you've been playing. You've got to convince him, might as well be fully aggressive. You can work with me or die. You saw what we're capable of tonight. Page 3 of 3. It can't hurt to play nice. Page 2 of 3. Might as well be fully. Page 3 of 3. Next. Phil furrows his brows and leans back. I'm not convinced. What you did to Mr. Leontery was an impressive effort. But it cost you. I'll tell you what. Our lawyers will send you a draft of the agreement. Why don't you look it over and get back to me, says Phil. And Mrs. Claus will be exactly as safe as she decides to be. I don't see how I can include that as a condition of the contract. Next, Phil stands and walks out the door, leaving it open behind him. An ashen-faced guard peeks his head in, but sees you and retreats down the hallway. You look around the room. All the windows are shattered, and the ground is wet. A puddle of blood lies by the door, the furniture is smashed, and the entire wraparound window is shattered, leaving the room open to the elements. The sky has cleared, leaving the stars to peek through. The wind from outside blows through the room. Page 2 of, you look around the room. The sky has cleared, leaving the stars to peek through. The wind from outside blows through the room. So much has happened these last few days. The Kingdom of Dreams is no longer a threat, and Crinkle Corp just lost its leader. But somewhere out there, under this sky or the other, Flickering Flame is waiting to make his move. Next chapter, button. Next chapter, Chapter 9 Flames Strike, image. Chapter 9 Flames Strike, image, shattered, leaving the room open to the elements. Voiceover off.